Hi.
Hey.
Could I have your name, please?
My name is Chanel BB.
Thank you. And could you tell me about what makerspace you work in and what kinds of things you make?
That's not supposed to be the hard question. I guess the makerspace that I work in most frequently is my own living room.
That's cool.
I make all types of things from art to research design to curriculum for different things.
Awesome. Thank you. And so I'm just going to ask you some questions about the things you make, and some of those questions might make sense depending on the context of the things that you're making, and some of them might not make a whole lot of sense, and that's fine. So my first question to you would be that do you think you include the users or the people who might be affected by the artifact that you're making in your design while you're making things?
Yeah, I think I have to include for artwork and stuff. I usually try to get as much of their perspective as possible, and even when I'm doing commission pieces, I try to kind of meditate on that person and what kind of vibe they have. For curriculum and stuff, it's directly tailored towards the people who are going to be involved in the curriculum. I don't often think about the space that they're going to be in, but I do think about the mental space that they're going to be in and how they receive stuff that I'm doing.
That's cool. So would you say that you are you mostly designing still for them, or would you also say that you design with them sometimes? Is there a fair amount of back and forth that happens?
It's a lot more of for, because often people pay me because they don't want to do it themselves. But it's almost impossible for me to do for without people with, because they're directly affected by it. So I have to check in with them pretty regularly.
Cool, thanks. And so if you can think back to the time when you first started making, you probably don't have a very distinct memory of it, but would you say that you make differently, or at least think of making differently? Would you say that you've grown as a maker in some way?
Yeah, so I think originally I was just making things that made me happy, or things that I wanted to do. I've grown in the sense that I've found a way to enterprise and stuff that I do. So now I'm making more just more intentionally, thinking a lot more about the materials that I'm using and trying to save stuff as opposed to just throwing crap together like I used to do when I was younger.
Cool. And from a skill perspective, because you did say you do a lot of different things, right? So you're painting, and then you're making, tinkering different things, and also curriculum. Do you think that there are certain skills that you might have developed over?
I've noticed that I'm really good at sitting in problem spaces for a while and imagining solutions. That's kind of why I started with the first question, because I think the world is kind of my makerspace. So for example, I was out with a friend of mine and her sandal broke, and she was freaking out, and I just kind of kept thinking about what part of the sandal was broken and what would need to be fixed about it, and I started imagining what kind of thing could possibly do that, and then ended up asking the bartender for a rubber band. He didn't have one, and I remembered that I had two in my head, so then it became kind of, how can we use this? So I think the skill set is more so being comfortable with the problem space and not jumping to solution, but just repeating to myself what the issue is from different perspectives and trying to figure out different solutions that could possibly get there.
And so this is going to be a hard one, because I want you to think of one of your favorite artifacts. It's probably really hard to think of just one, but I want to know if you could tell me a story behind one of your maybe richest artifacts that you've made, in which maybe you were very much involved in what was happening, and basically if you could tell me a story.
My favorite artifact would be my makerspace, because my living room is technically just a living room.
Yeah.
But since I've been here, it's become there's space for painting. There's also a desk space, but I never bought any furniture. I just had the stuff in the living room. I kept moving stuff around. And after a while, I started I had this mattress pad in my room that I was noticing was giving me too deep a sleep. So I had to take it off my bed, and I kind of made it into a stretch yoga space in the corner. And then around that, I kind of just set up stuff that has to do with that I use when I'm meditating. So it has a little prayer corner, some candles and stuff. And then I noticed that I wasn't really, I didn't have a space to sit and do work in my house. And I still don't really sit and do work there, but I at least have a setup for it now. So I built this high desk, a little bit shorter than this, that matched the chairs that I already had, because I had some high chairs that I was using to paint on, but I wasn't really sitting to paint. Kind of made out of the like shipping containers that I brought my stuff in stacked up, and then one of my paintings is like the table on top of it. And then like the painting area itself is another version of that table, but I use like old boxes and stuff to hold like the paint and the materials and stuff. And I really wish I would have like had a camera in my living room or something so you could see like time lapse of how things moved around in that space. Because like anytime somebody comes over, it's like, oh, it seems like you've been here forever. But really, like the current setup hasn't been like that for that long. It's just been really, really, really evolving. So every time I go home, I'm kind of proud of that, just that space as an artifact, because it kind of speaks to me redefining my own needs.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I haven't bought anything new in that space since maybe that chair. But I haven't really, I haven't spent that much money on making that space comfortable. I've just kind of moved around in it a lot.
Cool. And I think you already did touch upon this, but if you want to add to that, like if there was a story that you think that this artifact tells, a story or a narrative of sorts, what do you think the story or narrative would be around the makerspace that you have in your living room?
I think the story would be like an engineering graduate student trying to make space for her other identities in her living room. Because I came in and I was just kind of like, okay, I need a desk and a couch because I'm a grad student. And then it was like, I want to paint and I want to not get paint on the floor. So just trying to like, I think the story would just be kind of like my other identities, like fighting against the walls of constraints and boundaries that I have. So I think it very much speaks to like the person that I've developed since I've been here, because though I painted before I got here, most of those I've done the most painting in my life since I've been here in that space and in that room, and that's not really what I expected from that space when I got there. I knew I would need a space to paint because I knew it was an outlet for me, but I didn't know how much of an outlet I would need, and also didn't know how necessary that space would be. So now it's kind of the story of just where I go to relax. Like, it's very easy for me to sit there and do nothing. Like, I haven't really been painting in there, but because of how the space feels, because of the options to do stuff, I'm very comfortable just sitting still and appreciating who I am in that space.
Cool, thanks. So, I mean, and tell me if you disagree with this, but one way of thinking of making for me is going from these very abstract requirements, wants, fantasies, needs, to something which is physical, which is something that I can interact with. One, do you agree with that? And if you do, what do you think your process to do that is, translating these very abstract things into something which we can engage with?
Yeah, I think I agree with the abstract piece, because a lot of times they don't even come as like needs or constraints. They just come as like things I notice. So sometimes it's not even as concrete as an abstract need. It's just like an observation.
Right.
And I think my process is, it's hard to generalize, so it depends on like whatever the product or the
maybe you could
is.
talk about maybe one or two things you've made. It would be cool if like maybe one thing is like a need and the other thing is more like a want or something which was more luxury than necessity.
I needed a better wallet, but I also didn't have a lot of money to put in that wallet, so I didn't have a lot of money to spend on a new wallet. But I had a bunch of these like old like canvas paper that I had paint on, and I just kind of started looking at it, and I was thinking I had initially made some earrings out of it. And I didn't really, I have no practice making like accessories or like sewing or anything. But with the fabric I had left, I liked the design of it, and I thought it would be cool as a wallet. So I came up with a few different prototypes of like a flat wallet or a wallet that you could stuff all the cards into, but you couldn't really see them. And that process was very emergent because I didn't start tinkering that day trying to address that need. I was just kind of making things and remembered that I wanted a different type of wallet. And then I noticed like I had the materials for me, and then as I was making it, I started to develop preferences for how I wanted it to be. So in that sense, I was kind of designing as the user, but also kind of with these ideas in mind that I just started thinking about how I would use it and when I would use it, and like if I was like out and wanted to pull a card out, like how could I show like that these cards are the my ID, my card, my debit card, and the rest of these are like insurance cards, pet supplies plus cards or whatever. So that was a need. In terms of wants.